Hello YouTube, this is Brand from Team Horizon. I know this channel hasn't really been very active recently. I'm trying to change that, trying to put out a lot more videos, more content. We've all been really busy lately, so I'm trying to push us to do more stuff. But I'm going to start the rapid succession of videos with armor dragons. It's kind of generic crimsons, I guess. Buddy's Viking sword. Its ability is when you cast Day of the Dragon, if that is on your field, your monsters can attack for the turn. Which I'll go into what Day of the Dragon does later when we get to spells. But for monsters, start with size zeros. 3 boomerang dragons. Boomerang is a really good size 0. A 2/1/2 that when it swings, it comes back to your hand. The reason you play this is because almost all monsters that have high crit or really good abilities have less than 2,000 defense. They have 1 or 2. This is a really good field clearer and has really good for just pinging for 1. You can pretty much kill it with every counter destruction in the game, but people don't really want to because it's only 1 crit. It does come back every turn, but your opponent doesn't really want to destroy it. They'd rather destroy a monster that's attacking for 2 or 3 crit. But because it comes back to your hand, you can either charge it, or you can call it next turn. It has a very versatile card. Tomahawk, it's the same thing, but with 2 crit, but it costs a gauge. You could use that, but because Boomerang is free, it's just slightly better, being more abusable. And for size 1s, or Viking sword, for the buddy, just 3/2/1. Just 2 crit beater that also makes it so your monsters can attack when you cast Day of the Dragon. Again, go over what Day of the Dragon does when you get the spells. Allows you to ramp up your damage so much. 3 Ignited Dragon. Ignited Dragon's a 3/2/1 that when you have a fist equipped, it gets +1 crit. So it becomes a 3/3/1 for free. With a size 1 with 3 crit that has no call cost whatsoever is insane. You can have so many OTK formations or high damage output formations. You can get easily 7 to 10 damage with this deck if you go second. If your opponent does not have a shield or card in center. Now, from the new set, this thing is just broken. Rock Bunker. A 4/2/1. When it enters the field and you have a fist equipped, you send the top card of your deck into your gauge. So you gauge 1, for free. This allows you to almost always have your 3 gauge for your impact to Crusher. You also gives you gauge you need to play the drums, the infernos, all of your heavy gauge cards, and also for your Day of the Dragons, which also cost a gauge. And the 4K clearing power is just insane. For a size 1 that should get you a free gauge, being 4K power and 2 crit, there's not really much else to say about this card other than it's insane. The other size 1s you could play are Spin Nail, I guess. You could also play more Ignited Dragon. I don't really see any other size 1s really being much of an option. Then for size 2s, it's 4 Crimson Battler Boosted Dragon. If you have an item equipped with Fisted's card name, it gets Move. A free mover that has 5/2/6. Free mover with 6k defense is insanely stupid. The fact that it has 6k defense means a lot of decks either have to use their clear on this, or they have to link attack. Most decks can get a 6k beater on board, but even if they do, they still have to attack it because it's a mover. This gives the deck a lot of defense and a lot of survivability in the late game, instead of just having to rely on the dragonshields, which are still broken. But also the 5k power means it can clear things pretty well. And then drum, Crimson Battler, drum bunker dragon, another drum. 1 gauge, and then you put the top deck of the top card of your deck into its soul, and then if you have a card with fist equipped, it gets penetrate. 5/3/2 for top deck soul guard, it gets penetrate. Penetrate is always going to be good because of Mock Braver clones and Eligos and things like that. And now the new Skull Warrior one, Usagi. It limits what your opponent can do to defend themselves, because if they use a mover, you can easily just penetrate the mover for 3 crit. The 2 defense doesn't really affect it because it has Soul Guard. The Soul Guard just makes it so your opponent has to kill it twice, and the penetrate means it's always a threat. Especially with the 3 crit. You can also stall on it if you need to until you find your weapon. Then the other drum, the other Crimson Drum, I really like this drum. I really do. It's a 5/3/2, so the same stats as the other drum, except its call cost is 1 gauge, same as the other drum. Doesn't have Soul Guard, but instead, when it enters the field, if you do not have an item equipped, you can equip a fist from your drop zone by paying its equip cost. So essentially, if you charge a weapon and then you draw, and then you call him, you can equip the weapon that you pay for the gauge cost. You can easily go plus with this, and with Rock Bunker, you will almost always have gauge for this combo. And the fact that he has 3 crit, he's still a really good monster, and 2k defense doesn't really affect him because you kind of want him off the field to make room for your other size 2s after he does his thing. He is kind of bad late game, but he does help you get around item destruction. Now for size 3s, 2 Inferno Armors, the other 2 size 3s would be Inferno Armors, but we don't have the other 2 Inferno Armors. There's just so many Dragon World players that we can only get a hold of 2, and we're not that desperate to order them offline, so we're just going to stick with 2 for now. It's been working well. We don't really need to see it because we play Day of the Dragon. But the other size 3, should probably go over what it does. Inferno Armor is 2 gauge, put the top 2 cards of your deck into its soul, and if one of them is an Armor Dragon, you destroy a card in the field, and then you can take both of its soul, spit them out into the drop zone, and destroy another card in the field. Essentially, you kill 2 cards. At worst, you kill 1, but it's still 7/3/7 for 2 gauge. That still lets you pop a card. It's pretty good. Most of the time, you're going to get the destruction off because more than half your deck is monsters, but, you know, you won't always get that. Then the other size 2 is Bastard Sword. Bastard Sword is still a really good card. 7/2/6 that costs 2 gauge with move and double attack. Move is one of my favorite mechanics in the game because you essentially turn your monster into a shield while still being able to use your weapon. And the double attack, he essentially can deal 4 damage or kill a monster twice. That is really good, especially in the format where everything he likes to wall. So, yeah. And then standard for each of the dragon shields. Green, when you use it and you don't have a center, you gain a life. And then for blue, when you use it and you don't have a center, you gain a gauge. And now for the big spell of the deck, Day of the Dragon. This card is broken. 1 gauge, destroy all of your opponent's monsters. But the catch is, for the rest of the turn, your monsters can't attack. But when you have Viking Sword on the field, that doesn't apply, and all of your monsters can still attack. So you can blow up 2 or 3 of your monsters, or their monsters, and then you can swing in for massive damage. Or sometimes you don't even play your monsters, and then you just Day of the Dragon, and then you just swing with your weapon. It's not the most ideal thing to do, but you can do it. Day of the Dragon easily helps you plus, and clears the board for that, so that way you can actually deal the damage with all of your high crit monsters. Even with the heavy soul guard meta that we have right now, you're still going to burn through the soul really quickly with that. And then for Drago Blaze, 3/3 for 1 gauge. The 3 crit helps a lot for OT Kane and just damage in general. You don't really use it to clear. That's why you use Drum to clear. That's pretty much your go-to clear is your Drum for the penetrate. But if you can't get that, the other item we play, 3 Sunfist. The reason why we play Sunfist and not Drago Knuckle is Sunfist, the 6/2 helps a lot for clearing, and Drago Knuckle, you don't need gauge. With Rock Bunker, you will never, ever need that much gauge. Even with all of the gauge-heavy things, which there really isn't, really, the only thing that costs more than 1 gauge is Inferno Armor and Bastard Sword, which both cost 2. But between Blue Dragonshield and Rock Bunker, you will not need gauge from Drago Knuckle. And Drago Knuckle being a 2, you can pay gauge to make it buffer, but why would you pay 2 gauge to make it same power as Sunshine when you can just use Sunshine for 6/2, and you can link attack with your buddy to make it infinite, but you don't play it for that. The 6k clearing power is what you use it for, and the 2 crits also really nice. Now, the impact's 3 Gigantic Crusher. When your opponent's at 4 or less, and you have a fist equipped, and there's no monster in either of your centers, pay 3 gauge, deal 4 damage. The impact can't be, or the damage can't be reduced. This card is really good. It steals games that you probably shouldn't win normally, because it's so easy to pull off. Between the 7 weapons we play and the Scorching Drum, you will have essentially 9 ways to get your weapon. And if they're really heavy on destruction, you can always side Ring of Crimson, so that way you will always have a fist for this to be activated, to use this. And the 3 gauge, it's really easy to get 3 gauge with Rock Bunker and Blue Dragonshield. You will almost always have the gauge for this, except for maybe turn 1 when you call lots of things. But yep, that's the deck. If you have any questions or anything, you can either message the YouTube page, or you can message me, Brian Ashbrook, on Facebook. I will happily reply to anything you say. I will also, anything you would like me to test or change at the deck, I will try it out, and then I will give my opinion on it. If I say I've already tested it, I mean I actually have already tested it, and I'm not saying that the idea is bad, but that it just doesn't work for me. Alright, well, I guess that's it. I will try to bring a few more deck profiles for Buddy Fight. I'm going to try to get the others to do Vanguard. I know we have at least 2 more Buddy Fight deck profiles that I can do within the next week or so. And then Vanguard deck profiles, there's also, I think, maybe 5 in total that we can do for that. And then fight videos will strew throughout the entire process. So, any questions or anything, you know where to send that. So, alright, see ya.